Competition is king, and the Raiders proved that on Tuesday as they made a handful of moves before they ever had their first practice. That plus more comes up on Wednesday's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast for July 23rd, 2025.
You are Locked On Raiders, your daily Las Vegas Raiders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome in, Raider Nation, to another edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast. Thank you so much for making the show your first listen of the day. We definitely appreciate you. If you're catching the show wherever you find your favorite podcast, or you're checking us out by way of the YouTube page, you know we appreciate both. Show continues to grow each and every day because of your consistent support and the great job that my man Ari does behind the scenes, making sure we look good and sound good each and every day. We shout him out. He takes a lot of pride in his work. He's on Twitter if you want to check him out, at Ari Produces. You can hit me up as well, at your boy Q254. And we got the Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line for you at 707-654-4693. A lot of feedback, a lot of calls, a lot of texts, a lot of different subjects that we've been talking about, and of course, a lot of excitement for the first day of practice, which will roll out this morning around 8:30 a.m. at the Intermountain Health Performance Center. Head coach Pete Carroll opened up training camp on Tuesday with his press conference that lasted about 20 minutes. So your feedback, your calls and texts will close out the show. That'll be in segment number 3. Segment number 2, we'll talk about camp battles. Right? Where do I think the biggest camp battles are going to come from? And it's funny looking at some of the moves that the Raiders made as far as roster moves go on Tuesday. They may agree with me that some of the big camp battles are in the areas that I'm looking at and the positions that I'm looking at. But we'll break that down. We'll talk about it in segment number 2. Again, the first day of actual practice is today, 8:30 a.m. So depending on what time you're listening to this show, it may be just in time for the practice to get underway. Segment number 2, all things training camp battle. Segment number 1, news and notes of the day, and it all has to do with roster moves as the Raiders made a handful of them, literally a handful of them on Tuesday. We'll jump right into it after I tell you about the title sponsor of this show, and that's Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use promo code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. So on Tuesday, we got a chance to catch up with head coach Pete Carroll. He met with us for about 20 minutes at the Intermountain Health Performance Center, talked about Christian Wilkins, the only guy that's on the PUP list. He was very short when it came to Christian Wilkins and asked about a timeline when he thinks he could possibly return. And it was basically like there's no timeline. So whatever I took away from what he had to say about Christian Wilkins, it wasn't a whole lot, but it also wasn't encouraging. Sounded like the big fella was probably going to be on the PUP list for a while, maybe the majority, if not all, of training camp. The big question is going to be, is he going to be on the PUP list when they cut down the roster to 53 men? If they do, and if he is, then he's going to miss the first 4 games. I don't think that that's the plan, but I don't know that. It's just, again, going with the gut feeling, basing it off of what we heard from Pete Carroll and OTAs, mandatory minicamp, and also on Tuesday as he opened up training camp. But he didn't really elaborate, didn't go into great detail. That because, maybe he doesn't know the timeline. Maybe it's just gamesmanship and he doesn't want to give too much away, as he gave, like I said, very detailed answers in OTAs and mandatory minicamp. So that was the only guy that sounds like he's going to end up on the PUP list. Sounds like everyone did really good when it came to the conditioning, drills and their conditioning tests that they had. Sounds like everyone else was good to go for training camp. So they did make additions to the roster. And when I say they made additions, they made additions. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. On Tuesday, right after we met with head coach Pete Carroll, all of a sudden the news started rolling out about all the different guys that they signed. They signed safety Jamal Adams, wide receiver Philip Dorsett II, guard Antonio Mafi, wide receiver Seth Williams, and safety J.T. Woods. All those moves. That's 5 moves right there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that they made. 1 for each finger and a thumb, right? Which is not usual. When you have your roster, you have the 90-man roster, you normally get into training camp and then you'll make a move or two. But Pete Carroll, in the true Pete Carroll way, is showing that competition is king, something he's been preaching ever since he's been the head coach of the Silver and Black. And the big name that came through was safety Jamal Adams, right? And this is a guy that has been in the league for a handful of years. As a matter of fact, the Raiders, they sent out an email about, a description on all the guys, but he was the number 6 overall pick back in 2017 by the New York Jets. He spent the first 3 years of his career there before being traded to the Seahawks in 2020. And I remember back in 2020, I was doing this show and we knew that Jamal Adams was on the trade block. I pounded this table. I pounded that table. I pounded any table that was around me for the Raiders to go out and make the move for Jamal Adams because he was a leader. He was an alpha dog. He was the guy that can get to the quarterback. There was a lot of things I loved about Jamal Adams, and I kept thinking, go make the move, go make the move, go make the move. The Raiders obviously didn't. Seattle did. And boy, they dodged a bullet that they didn't make the move that Seattle did. Not only did they have to give him a whole lot of money, he ended up not really being available too much. Injuries have really plagued Jamal Adams. But the one thing he does, he's not a guy that I would say is a ball hawk. He's not that dude. Matter of fact, at times he's a liability in coverage. But, man, he can get after the quarterback. He can do that. Matter of fact, his first year in Seattle, 2020, had 9.5 sacks from the safety position. He's a true box safety. He's a guy that if he makes the team, and, again, that's a big if, right? This is a guy that hasn't really done anything the last couple of years that he's been in the league. As a matter of fact, in 2024, he played a combined 5 games. Right, 3 with the Tennessee Titans and then 2 with the Detroit Lions. So he hasn't done a whole lot of nothing in the last, couple seasons. But if he makes the actual roster, he could be a guy that Pete Carroll will obviously knows how to use, but he could be used as that box safety. He could be used as that guy that gets after the quarterback like he did so well his first year in Seattle. In his career, he's got 83 starts, 500 tackles, 21.5 sacks, 50 tackles for loss, 42 quarterback hits, 4 picks, 1 return for a touchdown, 36 passes defense, 7 forced fumbles, and 4 fumble recoveries. The dude is a hard hitter, right? His biggest thing is that he's been injured the majority of his career, right? It seems like ever since he really got traded to Seattle, he's been banged up. There's videos floating around social media about the great shape he's in. So, again, if he's able to make it on the roster, make the 53-man roster, he could be a really big asset, but he's got to go out there and he's got to make the roster. But, again, it's just more competition added to that safety room. How about this? Jamal Adams leads all defensive backs in the NFL in sacks, 21.5, and ranks second in the league in tackles for loss, 50 over the span of his NFL career. So Jamal Adams added to the mix. Philip Dorsett II, the wide receiver, speedster, added to the roster as well. He's a guy that was played with the Raiders before, right? And he didn't make it into the regular season, but he's a longtime vet, 8-year veteran wide receiver. He's been with the Falcons. He's been with the Patriots. He's been with the Jaguars, the Texans, the Broncos, the Raiders. He's played with multiple teams. The Colts, he could be a guy that's a camp body, but he's another wide receiver added to the mix. This one's pretty interesting when it comes to Antonio Mafi. He's a guy that worked with Chip Kelly at UCLA. So Chip Kelly is very familiar with him. Obviously, Chip Kelly's the offensive coordinator. He hasn't done a whole lot in the league. He comes to the Raiders after the 2024 season with the Colts. He began the season on the practice squad, and then he was elevated to the active roster. He's out of UCLA, playing 20 career games with 5 starts with the New England Patriots and the Indianapolis Colts, since entering the league as a 5th-round pick by the Patriots in 2023. But another guy added to the offensive line, a guy that can come in and, like I said, knows Chip Kelly really well, knows exactly what his scheme is. So you might see him make a little bit of noise in the competition for the offensive line, especially in that guard position. Yeah, talk about camp battles coming up, segment number 2. Well, that's definitely a position I'm paying attention to. And then a couple more guys added to the mix. Wide receiver Seth Williams. He's a receiver out of Auburn. He joins the Raiders in 2025 after spending a portion of last season on the Cowboys practice squad. And since entering the league as a 6th-round pick by the Broncos in 2021, he's played in 2 career games. Spent time with the Broncos and the Jaguars and the Cowboys. So he's probably a camp body when it comes to wide receiver, but again, just more competition. If you, before your first practice, if you're in that receiver room or you're in any one of these rooms where all these guys get added, and all of a sudden you look up and it's like, wait, hold on, we haven't even practiced one day and they just added 5 guys, you better know that you better be on your A game. As head coach Pete Carroll told us, he wants this to be the hardest training camp that these guys have ever had in their career, and I expect it to be exactly that, the hardest training camp they've ever had. So Williams was added to the mix. And then JT Woods. I was interested in this one. This is a guy that I know really well from his time at Baylor. He's a 2nd-year defensive back. He joins the Raiders after a 2024 season where he spent time on the practice squad of the Eagles and the Bears. He was originally selected in the 3rd round by the Chargers. He's playing a total 13 career games, all with the Chargers, having 8 tackles, 7 solo. But JT Woods, like I said, he was a really good player at Baylor. I got to know him really well while I was at ESPN Central Texas. He's just another guy that's going to be added to the mix as well. Camp competition. I don't think that JT Woods is going to make a whole lot of noise on the roster, but just to see all those moves that were made ahead of training camp kind of gives you the tone and lets you know how this training camp is going to go. And of course, they had to make some corresponding moves to make moves to make space for all those guys. So they waived cornerback Mello Dotson, wide receiver Zachary Franklin, wide receiver Keyshawn Smith, and also linebacker Jalen Walker. So, there you go. Lots of additions, a lot of subtractions added to the Raiders roster before they ever took the field. So if you go back and look, Pete Carroll's first year that he was in Seattle had about 300 different roster transactions that he made, roster moves. So expect them to be a lot of coming and going on this Raiders roster until they get done and wrapped up with training camp and preseason, so they make sure they have the right 53 guys and they have the right practice squad all in place. And even when you make the 53-man roster, you still haven't made it, because there's a chance that someone might get waived and the Raiders might say, oh, wait, hold on, we like that guy a lot, let's bring him in. That guy that just barely made it in to the 53-man roster, yeah, we're going to move on from him. I expect to see a whole lot when it comes to roster shakeups throughout the course of training camp. But where were the biggest training camp battles come from? We'll talk about that coming up in segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about a couple great sponsors here on the show, and the first one is the title sponsor, which is Monarch Money. Do you ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. So there's things that you'll notice when you start tracking your spending with Monarch, like how much you're spending on rideshare, or how much you're spending, eating out each and every weekend or throughout the course of the week, whatever the case may be. That's one thing that'll stand out to you. Subscriptions, that'll stand out to you. Like, wait, hold on, I didn't even know I had that subscription. Yeah, they'll make that so obvious, and they'll point it and make it easy so you can really get that under control. Right now, speaking of control, take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use promo code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, promo code LOCKEDONNFL for a half off your first year. I also want to tell you about Rugiet Ready. Guys, you've probably heard of Viagra or Cialis. Maybe you've even tried them. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rugiet Ready. Rugiet Ready is a next-gen prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in the brain and boost blood flow. Unlike the usual pills, they can take hours. Rugiet's 3-in-1 formula dissolves under your tongue and kicks in fast. On average, 15 minutes. Its effects can last up to 36 hours, so you can stay confident and in control when the moment is right. And you know when the moment was right. Over 150,000 men have already made the switch, and it's completely online. Rugiet connects you with a board-certified doctor and ships your treatment discreetly to your door. And they've got real customer reviews on their website. So if you need a little bit more confidence, if you want to make sure that this is the real deal, you can definitely check it out. Head to Rugiet.com/LockedOnNFL. Use the promo code LockedOnNFL to get 15% off today. That's Rugiet, RUGIET.com/LockedOnNFL. Use promo code LockedOnNFL for 15% off. Individual results may vary with prescription treatment. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, or manufacturing review. Please visit the Rugiet website for full safety information. All right, Raider Nation, as we jump into day one of Raiders training camp, so excited about it. The first practice is this morning, coming up 8:30 a.m. Intermountain Health Performance Center. Excited about just the atmosphere of training camp. I've been here in Las Vegas since 2021, and I've seen many different training camps, from John Gruden to Josh McDaniels to Antonio Pierce last year in Costa Mesa. And this one looks like it's going to be the most accessible when it comes to fans. It's something that Pete Carroll mentioned in his press conference on Tuesday, that he's going to get as many fans in there as possible, as many as they can accommodate. He wants in the building, and being able to walk the field on Tuesday just to check it out, because the morning show on Raider Nation Radio 920, the morning tailgate, they're actually going to broadcast their show each and every day. So we got an opportunity to get out there and just kind of check it out on Tuesday just to see what it looks like. There's so many seats that are there. There's so much accommodation for fans. And it's funny that they're really focusing in on making sure not only the fans are there, they're heard, their energy is there, but also they don't have a obstructed view, right? In the media guide that they've given us, it says make sure you're not in the way of the fans. So I'm excited. I think the fans being able to be up close and personal with the Raiders during training camp, give them that energy that they're going to need throughout the dog days of summer, I think is going to be a really good thing. So what are the fans going to be looking at? What kind of camp battles are they going to be looking at is what I want to talk about here in segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. And I've got a handful of positions that I'm really focused in on. The guards, the offensive line, but the guard play in particular. I feel we're confident about the left tackle and Colton Miller. I feel like we're very confident about the center and Jackson Powers-Johnson. And I feel like we're confident in the right tackle when it comes to DJ Glaze. And I know Colton Miller at the left tackle has the contract situation going on, but I really do feel like, and maybe I'm being foolish, but I feel like that situation will get resolved. But those guards, left guard and right guard, is what I'm really focused in on. Dylan Parham, Jordan Meredith, Alex Kappa, Caleb Rogers, even Thayer Munford, right? Parham is in the last year of his deal. Meredith came on really strong last year, played better than anyone expected. Alex Kappa was signed as a free agent from the Cincinnati Bengals. Caleb Rogers, the Raiders drafted in round 3. Thayer Munford's in the last year of his deal, and he's really been a guy that could play any position on that offensive line outside of the center position. Right, and they gave him an opportunity to be the right tackle last year, and he got injured early in Costa Mesa. That's when DJ Glaze took over. But I've heard rumblings of Thayer Munford also competing at that left guard position. So that's also something to pay attention to. And then, of course, on Tuesday, the Raiders signed Antonio Mafi, the guard, and I think that he's a guy that you can add to the mix as far as the competition, especially since he's very familiar with Chip Kelly being there at UCLA when Chip Kelly was. So I just think that that guard position is going to be a big-time competition that we need to pay attention to, probably something that I'll talk about each and every day. I want to see if there ever becomes a pattern where the same 5 guys are consistently on that offensive line, because one of the biggest tasks for the Raiders this training camp and preseason is going to be find and identify your starting 5 offensive linemen as quick as possible and let them get on the same page with each other. I say it all the time, one band, one sound. That's what they need to be, right? You want to make sure that those guys, if anybody on the football team, is all rowing in the same direction, right? I talk about it all the time that I took a video when we were in Hawaii and I saw some folks in a boat and they were rowing and it was like they were practicing for their race, and I took a video of it. I didn't tweet it out or anything, but I just wanted to have it because every once in a while I'll open up my photos on my phone, I'll look at it, because if you look at what they do, if you ever take time and look at everyone in a boat when they're rowing and like they're in a competition, they're all on the same page and they're all boom, boom. The strokes all at the same time. They switch sides all at the same time. Everything is at the exact same time. And if it's off, guess what? They're going to be slow. So when I look at the offensive line, they have to be that boat. They all have to be rowing in the same direction at the same time, making the same movements, right? More importantly than anyone else on the football field, they all have to be rowing in the same direction. So they are the ultimate team when it comes to the offensive line, right? The right hand has to know what the left hand is doing and vice versa. So I really want to see how quickly the Raiders can identify their starting 5 along that offensive line, who's going to play those guards positions and who are going to be the backups. So that's going to be one of the biggest camp battles that I'll be focused in on. Then I flip over to the defensive side of things and I look at the cornerback room, the secondary. And again, that's also something that was addressed on Tuesday as they added some players. And of course, they added Jamal Adams. That was the big name to the back end as a safety. But then JT Woods, he's a guy who's a safety, but he can slide up into the cornerback room if he needs to. But I'm really looking at Eric Stokes, DeCam Richardson, Darian Porter, and Jacorian Bennett. If you go back and think about OTAs and mandatory minicamp, Eric Stokes and Darian Porter were the starting corners. DeCam Richardson and Jacorian Bennett were running with the 2s. Now, JB played really well last year until he got injured, ended up on IR, but he's not a prototypical Pete Carroll cornerback, where a guy like DeCam Richardson, Darian Porter, even Eric Stokes, they fit that mold more, the long, lengthy type guys, but Jacorian Bennett could run. He's got speed. He's a sure tackler. He's got that dog in him. And he was playing really well last year until they shut him down and put him on IR. So I think that competition is going to be strong. And again, I've mentioned it many times. We don't know who's going to play the nickel corner, right? I mean, Nate Hobbs, those are big shoes that need to be filled, right? I don't know if Jamal Adams is going to make the squad or not, but maybe he helps fill that void. I think Darnay Holmes is going to do that, but Pete Carroll can get very creative. I wouldn't be surprised if you see somehow, some way, 3 safeties on the field if Jamal Adams makes the squad. And again, that's a big if, because he's been banged up a lot. And so I don't want to just count on a guy. Again, if this was 2020, I'd be fired up. It'd be like Jamal Adams, we'd do a whole segment just on Jamal Adams. But it's not 2020. It's 2025. right? So it's many moons removed from when Jamal Adams was at the top of his game. So I do think he's going to play a factor in all this. I just don't know exactly what that factor is going to be, and if he, at the end of the day, really ends up making the 53-man roster. Also, I'm looking at the backup running back. When you're looking at Ashton Genty, you know he's penciled in as starter. You know Raheem Mostert, feel very confident that he's going to be part of the squad, and he's going to, be a guy that, he'll get some carries down by the goal line. He'll get some carries just to kind of spell Ashton Genty. It's really going to be the 1-2 punch of Genty and Raheem Mostert. But behind those guys, what about Sincere McCormick and Zamir White? What is their role? Right? Zamir White is a guy that we all thought was going to have a role to be the starting running back last year to take over for Josh Jacobs after he left the Green Bay in free agency. And it just didn't work out for him. For one reason or the other, the system didn't fit him. The offensive line wasn't very good. The offensive play caller wasn't very good. There was a lot that didn't go well for Zamir White last year. Sincere McCormick, he came in and he looked pretty good. He's a young man out of UTSA, but then he can't stay healthy. Right? I mean, the same thing that's plagued him since he's been in the league is health and availability, and that's what plagued him last year. He was doing really well. Everyone thought, okay, man, this guy, he's earned more carries, and then he goes out and he's on IR and he misses the rest of the season. So I know he's chomping at the bit to get back out there, but he's got to stay healthy. So I'm looking at that competition between those two guys in particular, Sincere McCormick and Zamir White. I feel great about Genty, feel great about Mostert, right? And Mostert even last year was banged up, but I still feel confident about him. But McCormick and Zamir White, those are two guys that I look at and say, okay, who's going to come out ahead between those two dudes in the running back room? I know Dylan Lobby is still part of the mix as well. I kind of look at him as a special teams ace as opposed to a running back at this stage of the game. I could be proven to be wrong, but at this stage of the game, I'm really focusing on McCormick, Zamir White, behind Raheem Mostert, and obviously Ashton Genty, who will definitely be the guy who gets the workload when it comes to the carries in the regular season. And then finally, and I kind of put an asterisk next to this because I don't really think this is a training camp battle, but I do think it's a nugget and a note to pay attention to. And I'm looking at the backup quarterback. I talked about the cornerbacks, but the backup quarterback. And the reason I say that, not that I think that Cam Miller, who was drafted in the 6th round, is going to beat Aiden O'Connell out, and he's going to all of a sudden be the backup quarterback. There's only 3 quarterbacks on the roster right now: Geno Smith, Aiden O'Connell, and Cam Miller. But I'm interested to see if any team has an injury, and we all know that Aiden O'Connell is going into the last year of his deal. If a team gets an injury to a quarterback, could they make a call to the Raiders and find out if Aiden O'Connell's available? He does have starting experience in the league. He's a guy that's been there, done that. Like, think about if something happens to the backup quarterback in New England. You think that Josh McDaniels wouldn't say, hey, man, there's a quarterback that I'm very familiar with there in Vegas. He's a backup right now. I'm familiar with him. I could see that happening. If an injury happens anywhere in the league, and I don't wish that on anyone, but I know that's a reality of training camp that these things happen. So I'm actually intrigued to see if Cam Miller gets a little bit of burn, and if they believe in him, if they see enough from him where they think, you know what, if for some reason they have to move Aiden O'Connell, who's in the final year of his deal, that Cam Miller can hold down that backup spot. I'm not confident that they're going to feel that way, right? He's got to go out there and prove it. But that's what intrigues me about the backup quarterbacks. Again, not saying that Cam Miller, I want to make this perfectly clear, not saying Cam Miller is going to beat out Aiden O'Connell, but just in case something happens throughout the course of the training camp or even preseason and some quarterback goes down, whether it's a starter or a backup, that team may look at Aiden O'Connell and say, you know what, this is a guy that has that starting experience, and we trust him more in our quarterback room than we do with whoever is behind whoever would be the next guy up, right? So that's why I kind of put the asterisk there. Again, I don't think it's a true training camp battle, but more of a competition just to see where Cam Miller is after training camp and preseason, just in case a team out there needs break glass in case of emergency and make a call to the Raiders and try to trade for one Aiden O'Connell. So that's how I see it as far as the biggest training camp battles: the guard position, the cornerback position, the backup running back when you look at Sincere McCormick and Zamir White, and then with the asterisk next to it, the backup QB, Aiden O'Connell and Cam Miller. But what says you as training camp gets going, practices gets going? Let me know what your thoughts are at 707-654-4693. As a matter of fact, we'll close out the show hearing from you. We'll do that next here on today's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast. Before we get to that, though, I do want you to know that this episode is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. Fantasy football is back. Fire up the group chat, get your draft board ready, and buckle up for a season filled with breakouts, busts, and all the overreactions that we live for. It's all going down on Yahoo Fantasy. This year, a lot of different shows are going to be participating in Yahoo Fantasy, and you should do the same thing. Whether you're a first-timer or a veteran making your millionth league, you need to be a part of it. A lot of folks use Yahoo Fantasy, and they've done it for years and love how smooth the draft day experience is. The leagues have been running through Yahoo for a while now. They're easy to set up. They have a great mobile app, and the smack talk, it just hits different in the message board. Something I know about, even though I don't play, I know all about it because many, many people do. To celebrate 28 years of fantasy greatness, Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 big new features over 28 days, giving you more ways to play, more ways to draft, and more ways to win. It all begins August 4th. Stay tuned and get started by creating or joining a Yahoo Fantasy Football League at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. That's yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL, and make this fantasy season the best one yet. Here we go, Raider Nation. Segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. We hear from you, your calls and texts, 707-654-4693. So happy that football is back. Football activities are back because I feel like our football conversations will be back here in segment number 3. We'll start things off with Jacob in Wilmington, North Carolina, calling to talk about the signing of Jamal Adams. Here he is, Jacob in Wilmington, North Carolina.
Hey, Q. Hey, Ari. Hey, Raider Nation. Fellas, this is Jacob Mazza from Wilmington, North Carolina. I don't know if you remember this, Q, but last year I said, yo, what do you think about us going out and signing the Prez, Jamal Adams? And you're like, nah, he's too long in the tooth, he doesn't got it. And you're right, and I was like, well, what's the worst that could happen? And now, I was a year early, but I called it. Oh, man, this kind of feels good. I hope they say he's in great shape, and we could use the safety help, so I kind of like the pickup. Q, break it down, my guy. Hey, Raider Nation, just win, baby.
Jacob, thanks for the call. Appreciate you. Definitely interested to see what Jamal Adams has left. If he could be the guy he was with the Seahawks back in 2020 when they first made the trade for him, he could be a real dude. Man, and again, anyone who's been listening to this show for a long time knows I was a big fan when the Jets were looking to trade him. I was like, man, the Raiders need to go get him. He's that alpha dog. He's that leader. He can do this, that, and the third. I mean, look, in 2020, he had 9.5 sacks. 9.5 sacks, if you look at that last year, would have led the Raiders in sacks. That would have led the team in sacks. So, again, he can get after the quarterback. There's a lot of good things he could do. He's not a guy that's like a ball hawk. He's going to create a bunch of turnovers, but, man, he's a hard hitter, right? He's going to get a lot of tackles for loss. He plays around the line of scrimmage. He is a tough dude, and at least he's going to provide some competition in the safety room. Again, I don't know if he's going to make the squad or not, but if he does, he could end up being something. I just want to see it before I get hyped up about it. But thanks for the call. I do appreciate you. Up next, got a text from Sub-Zero Raider. Hey, Q. I'm sure one of my many texts and calls today on the Jamal Adams move. Excited about them going after veteran talent. Just worried about availability and talent. 15 games in 3 seasons, no picks since 2021. Honestly, not sure if this is a good move by the adults in the room or a more recent traditional Raiders stretch. What says you? Love what you bring to us every day, Q. Holding it down in Chi-Town. Sub-Zero Raider. Go Raiders. Thanks so much and appreciate you. And yeah, that's going to be the biggest question. Jamal Adams and availability has been an issue. Now, don't look for him to be a guy that's going to intercept a lot of passes. He just doesn't do that. That's not his forte. What he does really well is he hits people. He's a hard hitter. He can get some TFLs. He can get some sacks. He can cause some fumbles, right? I mean, he's good at that. He's really good around the line of scrimmage. So I could see a situation where he's the box safety. I could see a situation where the Raiders have 3 safeties on the field at one time. I really can. And I also think that he can help with Isaiah Palamau and the way that, he's able to go and hit guys and he lays the wood. I haven't seen Isaiah yet, but it's been a small sample size. Haven't seen him really be like a ball hawk, but I have seen him a guy that, has the physicality and dislodges the ball a lot from the guy trying to catch the ball. So I think that he could be a good mentor as well for Isaiah. I just don't know, for the reasons that you said, if he's going to make the roster, if he's going to even be available, because that's been his biggest thing. He just has not been available for, quite a while, as you broke down. So thanks so much for the text. Definitely appreciate you. We'll see what Jamal Adams has, and we'll see it starting today. Up next, got a call from Key from the 305. He's calling to talk about strength, weakness, and X factor for the silver and black, a conversation that we had on Tuesday's show. Here he is, Key from the 305.
Hey, yo, Q. Key from the 305 again. Calling in again. As always, enjoy the show. Quick hit here. I commend you on the control through the shade that gets thrown at you. I commend you. I can tell this first irritation, I guess you want to say irritation. I can feel the irritation, but I definitely commend you keeping it together through the shade. I understand you and I are similar in age, so I completely get it. But yeah, everybody's got a perspective. Sometimes it's off the mark. Sometimes it's closer to the truth. I'm gonna leave that there. You put my 2 cents in on strength, weakness, and X factor. So my strength, or what I feel like is going to be a strength, I'm going with the edge rushers. It's a gamble, I know. We know who Max is. Kuntz is coming off injury, so it's a gamble. I get it. It's definitely a gamble, but I'm going to say Kuntz and Crosby are going to be the strength of our team. I think they're going to wreak havoc, however you want to put it, on opposing offenses and quarterbacks. I think Kuntz was coming on strong before that ACL, and I think he's going to pick up where he left off. So I'm going with edge rushers as our strength. Weakness, I'm doubling down with you, brother. Defensive backs. Who are they? Who do we have? I have no clue. We know JB, but really I think they're going to be the weakness, or I'm going to say going into camp they're the weakness because they're one of many positions we don't know anything about, but I'm going to go with them. X factor, I'm going to say Chip Kelly. I think having a competent OC is going to be a game changer. He score points on offense for the most part. So I think how he puts together his play calling, I think that's going to be big. So I'm going to go with that as the X factor. And real quick, I got a little time. I'm going to dip into the comment about Tommy Millott and Julian Edelman. And I'm going to say, I just want to say this. It's a hell of a compliment. If Tommy Millott can be Julian Edelman-like, I'm great. I think we're used to comparing like looking folks, so I don't think it's shade. I think it's a good thing, and I don't see nothing wrong with it. He's a great person. He compared himself to Edelman, so that's it. Just win, baby.
Key, thanks so much for the call. Strength, the edge rushers, Kuntz and Crosby. It's what I anticipated a year ago, right? I thought that Malcolm Kuntz, coming off of the 2023 season, the second half that he had, he was going to be phenomenal. Obviously, he tore his ACL. We'll see where he's at. Getting back to practice today. Feel good about him. But as Pete Carroll said, hey, I haven't really got to see him go yet. I haven't seen him play with what we want to do. Saw him briefly. I want to see if what he did in the second half of 2023 was just, that stretch, or if that's who he's going to be. If he can be that guy, then he can be an absolute Robin to Max Crosby's Batman. That would be fantastic. The weakness, the DB room, I just say that that's the weakness as well, only because it's unknown. I don't really call it. I think that they've got a lot of talent in the room. I just don't know who's going to emerge as the ones that are leading in the defensive back room. So that is, I put that as a weakness as well. But again, it's more because of the unknown, not because they're not talented room. And then the X factor, I like it. Chip Kelly is offensive coordinator, right? I mean, this guy is a very strong play caller. We had Jared Smith from Fox Sports on this show on Monday. You heard his conversation and how much he was excited about what the Raiders offense is going to look like under Chip Kelly, because, again, he's an established OC, he's an established play caller. He knows what and how to go do it about it. And the Raiders do have talent. They just got to go execute it. So, I think that makes good sense for him being an X factor. You're going from Luke Getsy to Chip Kelly. I think that's a huge upgrade. And as far as Tommy Millott goes, and again, my biggest thing when I was comparing him to Julian Edelman, who, by the way, is a great player, was a great player in the National Football League, but that was the player that he compared himself to. That was the player that he chose, and he modeled his game up after as he was coming up. So it wasn't like I just picked some random dude and was like, hey, you know what? He reminds me of Julian Edelman. No. That's what he said. So I just relayed the message. And, a lot of times it gets lost in translation. You know how those kind of things go. But Keith, thanks so much for the call. Definitely appreciate you. Up next, got a text from Raider Rob in Pittsburgh. Just got time for a couple more. It says, Q, it's Raider Rob from Pittsburgh. Does it feel different? Does it feel right? Q, I feel like I'm in the twilight zone. This offseason, the Raiders ran it like the Steelers have for years, and the Steelers are running their offseason like the Raiders have for years. This time it's different and right. Boy, I sure hope that the statement you made today about possibly cutting out segment 3 was just out of frustration, nothing more. The third segment is what makes you so different from everyone else. The third segment has brought many more people together than separated. Man, we are one big family. Don't break it up. This family forced me to overcome my dislike of flying back in 2019 when Selena put together the last tailgate party. You opened my eyes where I text my $2 every single day, even if it's just to say hi. Please think hard and long about this decision. My main question for you today is, do you know Pete Carroll's past philosophy on preseason games, such as do the starters play, how long, etc.? So excited for this year's preseason games, so I'm pretty curious if you know anything. Keep up with all the great work you're doing, and truly don't know how many people you affect every single day. Let's go Raiders. That's Raider Rob in Pittsburgh, and that was a great tailgate party to end the Oakland Coliseum, right? Even though the Raiders came up with an L against the Jacksonville Jaguars, Anna, Rob, Selena, and the OC, everyone who did all the work to put that bad boy together was fantastic. There's no doubt about that. Segment number 3, I'm going to keep seeing how it goes, but, we start getting into a category and start talking about things that, we shouldn't be getting into on this show. I rather eliminate it altogether than have to deal with it, to be honest. The one thing about the Raiders, and one of the main reasons that I'm even a Raider fan before any of this, was because of the beliefs of Al Davis, and where it never was anything about race or gender or anything else. We were all inclusive and family, like you mentioned. I tried to provide that, but it just seems like, there's always a few that want to really get in and break that up. And as opposed to trying to just weed it all out, I can just simply eliminate it and not deal with any of the headaches. So it's not something I'm going to make a quick decision on. It's something that I'm going to take my time. I don't want to be like emotional and make a decision about things, but really just don't want to deal with the headaches. So we'll see how it goes. Like I said at the top, now that football's back and the season's right around the corner and there's actually football activities, maybe we can get focused on football as opposed to nonsense. So that's where I'm hoping we go. And if we do, then we'll be good to go. If we continue down the road of nonsense, well, then I'll have to make some decisions. So that's where that goes. As far as Pete Carroll and preseason, I mean, if you think about it, when Derek Carr won the starting job back in 2014, his rookie year, remember there were starters in that game in week 4. Right? It was the 4th preseason game. Derek Carr got the start against Seattle, and it was, Richard Sherman was out there. There were some parts of the Legion of Boom that were out there. Not everybody, but there was members of that defense that were out there, and that's what really caught everyone's attention. So I believe in Pete Carroll and the competition that he's always preaching. I'm sure that he's going to play some starters in the preseason. I think that he should. That'd be smart. A lot of these teams foolishly just use the first 4 weeks of the regular season as preseason, and then these guys have to work themselves into football shape. I think these guys need to come into the regular season. By the time they hit New England week 1, they should be already lathered up, ready to go. So I'm hoping that Pete Carroll does go ahead and have these guys play in the preseason. I'm not saying all the games, but definitely get some good burn in the preseason so they're ready to go week 1. And remember, there's only 3 preseason games now, so it's not like you're out there all the time. But thanks so much for the text. I do appreciate you. And we'll close out with a call from Raider Joe and KC, calling to talk about head coach Pete Carroll after listening to his press conference on Tuesday to open up training camp. Here he is, Raider Joe and KC.
What up, Q? It's your boy Joe and KC. Man, I just got done listening to Pete Carroll's press conference, and man, I got to be honest. Initially, I was not big on Pete Carroll. Not that I don't appreciate his greatness and understanding that he's a future Hall of Fame coach and everything he's done with USC. I just kind of want to take like a younger, more offensive move when it came to head coach. But I will say, since we have brought him on, every time that I listen to this guy or I learn more about him, I'm just even more and more bought in, man. Like, just his mentality and the way that he approaches and what he demands out of his players, I'm I couldn't imagine playing for him because like I'm ready to get to it by just listening, and it's not like a lot of big like rah rah. It's very matter of fact in his approach, but at the same time, it's like he gets the rah rah out of you, or the benefits of having that rah rah. But it's just a very consistent matter of fact. This is how we go about it. This is what we do. So I just think it's really interesting, and I'm excited to see what happens this year. I'm still kind of holding my breath as far as like putting out expectations or anything like that, just because I've been burned too many times. So I just kind of want to sit back and enjoy it rather have an expectation. But I am excited to see. We'd love to hear your thoughts on the Q. Raider Joe out.
Raider Joe, thanks so much for the call. Appreciate you. I'm with you. I wasn't huge on Pete Carroll when that name was first floated my way. And I talked about it on the show, like, okay, right? I mean, there was a reason why Seattle decided to take him off the sideline and put him in the front office, put him upstairs. And so I wasn't really too high on him. But when it's all said and done, he might not have been the first choice, as Ben Johnson was the guy that all of Raider Nation was talking about, and he was the prize, to get for the head coaching position. Obviously, the Bears ended up getting him, but he's probably the best guy for the Raiders, a guy that has that, that the skins on the wall. He's got the resume, the proof of concept, where even Ben Johnson wouldn't have had that. Now, I know he, had that experience in Detroit under Dan Campbell, but doesn't mean that he's going to be able to execute it. It'd be another head coach with no coaching experience that the Raiders would have. So at least they have the proof of concept with Pete Carroll, and I think that it's been a great hire. Everything that he's done, him and John Spytek together as a team, I think has been really good since they've taken over the Raiders. So we'll see what happens moving forward. But, yeah, I mean, how do you not get excited for a guy like him that is going to bring a lot to the table and is already, shown to be a difference maker as far as a head coach goes for the Silver and Black. So, Raider Joe, thanks so much for the call. Definitely appreciate you. Still got a text from Raider in South Carolina. Also, L in Canada. We'll get to those coming up tomorrow. Also, we've got the Raider Squad show later on this morning. So depending on what time you're listening to it, I'll probably be at the Raiders facility when the show starts at 7:30 a.m. Pacific time. Chantel Chan, Lincoln Kennedy, and myself. We're going to talk about a lot of things from the roster moves that the Raiders have made, what to expect from the first day of training camp. We'll keep on rolling with that bad boy, 1 hour long. 1 hour strong. So hopefully, you're excited, you're pumped up, you're jacked up, like Pete Carroll said multiple times in his press conference on Tuesday. I'm jacked up and super excited that we made it, and football activities are back again. So, of course, we'll talk about everything goes on at training camp and then some coming up on tomorrow's show. So until then, Raider Nation, take care of yourself, take care of your family, love on your family. Most importantly, as always, just win, baby.